they're just watching the replay.
There we go. Hey everybody, welcome to Marketers Brain Trust Hangout. Just like any other exciting week, sometimes we have to hit a few roller coasters to get on the air. I'm Michelle Chant-Sangthong, and this week you get to hear my name said correctly because it's me doing intro. With us today, we have the amazing Dan Thies and the ever-silent, hi, and the ever-silent Leslie Rohde today.
Yes, so, Leslie is not able to figure out his audio, and it might be the greatest blessing we've had all day. So, yes. See, I can't hear what he's saying about me right now. So, what we're doing today is more AdWords. We're going to do the third of the Adwords Triangulation Method presentations. And this will be the last part that we're going to do for a little while. We're going to do a Q&A session in 2-3 weeks after giving folks a chance to actually put some of this stuff to work so that we can answer people's questions. And then, depending on how that goes, we might end up redoing the whole thing, but we certainly won't be redoing it live on Hangouts. We'll be redoing it some other way that ends up getting pushed to our YouTube channel without a live Hangout. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop in a little message into the chat room and ask if people can hear me saying, "Hey, can you hear me?" And hopefully that means that we're actually live to the group.
Good news is at least I can see the chat, so that's something.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and switch me to screen share while I'm waiting to find out if anybody can actually hear me. And that'll be desktop number 2, or as we say in Spain, numero dos. And now I am screen sharing. And soon I will be made the presenter because Leslie knows how to do that and he has control of that.
And we've got lots of yeses coming over the chat line there, Dan.
Fantastico. Thank you, comrades. And I don't mean comrades in a communist way. I just mean comrades in the way that comrades meant before the commies took over and started calling people comrades. Okay. So now I'm going to start the slideshow. I know there's a button for this somewhere. Oh, it's over here, hidden behind my other screen. There we go. Dun, dun, dun. So today we're going to be working through part 3 of the AdWords Triangulation Method. In part 1, which we did 2 weeks ago, we talked about, well, first of all, we did a little bit of an update for folks that had already been familiar with the method, and that also introduced some of the concepts behind it that we're not going to rehash here. The second part was last week, and we went through the core of the method in terms of how it's applied to search campaigns. We'd already gone through how to use this in shopping campaigns in the first week as part of the update because, well, that's one of the things that's actually new to Google since the last time we did a big update of this training program, although we've done smaller ones to smaller groups in live events and things like that over the years. And so today we're going to go through the least exciting but one of the most important parts of what you have to do to get this stuff right, and that is the campaign settings, because just as they were doing to us in 2004 and just as they were doing to us in 2008 and 2010, still today in 2015, Google has set you up with lots of little defaults in AdWords, and in a lot of cases things that they recommend and warn you not to change that in fact you should change as quickly as you can because, well, I don't even know why Google recommends some of these things. Surely they're not just trying to trick us into spending more money than we should. That's the job of the AdWords rep if you ever have one of those. So let's dive in and quickly review one quick little thing, which is to understand the difference between campaigns and ad groups. And back when I first started doing this stuff, and back when I first started teaching this stuff, everything I'm going to tell you about was completely controlled at the campaign level, and slowly but surely we're getting little bits of stuff added into the ad group level so that we can control it. Right now that's not a big deal, but campaigns are there to provide a high level structure for you. The main things that you do with campaigns is you control your budget, how much of your money Google is allowed to spend on advertising, you control distribution. So you control what countries, you control whether it's just google.com search or google.com.au if you're targeting Australia, but just Google search, or if you're also exposing your ads to the search partners. And by the way, back in 2008, the search partners, you could normally expect a pretty significant drop in performance on just about any campaign. And these days, that is really not the case. Google has done a good job of cleaning up some of the worst behavior of the search partners, but also done a better job of giving you the same kind of keyword control through search partners that you have at the Google search level. Nonetheless, I'll still recommend that we start the same way, but the caveats in terms of the risks involved in using the search partner network are nowhere near the same as what they used to be. And also a lot of the operating parameters that you go under, how your bids are controlled, how your ads rotate, and things like that. You've got a lot more control now than you used to have, but the defaults are wrong, and you still need to fix them, and you still need to understand what all the options mean so that you can get them right. The biggest thing with campaigns is that you really want to use the smallest number of campaigns that you actually need. Michelle, isn't it one of your favorite things to take over somebody's AdWords account and find out that they've got 1,400 campaigns and each one has an ad group in it? You don't have to answer that.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, but it makes me so happy.
More work, yay! I get paid by the hour. But for most of us, at a bare minimum, you're going to want to have a campaign for production. That is to say, ad groups with keywords and ads and landing pages that are actually profitable and productive, that you're not really that concerned about trying to keep the budget under control. And a testing campaign where you've got stuff that you're not quite sure whether it's going to ever work, but certainly not quite sure how to make it work, and it's just not something where you want to expose a lot of your ad spend to stuff that is untested and unproven, and you're not sure how it's going to work out. But of course, you do want to do some testing if you haven't already extracted all the profits that are available. Some of them you're going to have to go find by trying new things. So at the very least, you'd want to have a production campaign that has the bulk of your budget, then a testing campaign that has a smaller budget, which basically represents the minimum amount of money or the maximum amount of money that you're willing to bet on what could be a losing bet on any given day. Ad groups are something that you should probably have more of than you have right now, because ad groups control keywords and their bids, but also the ads and landing pages, and all of those things are stuck together in an ad group. So as we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, one keyword in an ad group means that you can write an ad that fits that keyword exactly and send people to landing pages and test different landing pages if you're in the mode of doing that at the time for that particular keyword. But of course, if you start with an exact match, you know almost exactly what they searched for. And the more keywords that you add to the ad group, the less you know, and they're all going to see the same ad. So if you have 10 different keywords that aren't weird variations that aren't already being captured by Google properly anyway, maybe it's different word orders that you might use exact match for, and you've got them combined together. I don't want to revisit last week, but ad groups control your keywords and your bids and your ads and your landing pages. And oh, by the way, nowadays you can actually control device level bids. So you can, for a particular ad group, say you can do a minus 100% bid adjustment so that you can not bid for people on phones, and that's really, really a useful level of control. This is really the first place that Google gave us additional control at the ad group level. And of course, at the campaign level and at the ad group level, you have negative keywords that you can apply, and if you have large lists of keywords that are always going to be negatives for you, then you can actually create a shared list of negative keywords in your account that you can apply to all of your campaigns all at once. And you can't do that at the ad group level because it doesn't let you do that kind of control. So at the ad group level, you are doing individual negative keywords, and you can certainly copy and paste lists or upload lists of words, but you can't just build a shared list. And so there's a little bit of more convenience to what you can do at the campaign level there. But the ability to change device level bids is great, because sometimes you've got some keywords that are going to work great on mobile devices because you've got landing pages that are working from and all that stuff, and you've got others where it might not work. And so being able to control that is great. We won't today dive into the deep details of how to try to knock out and avoid targeting desktop and target just mobile, but the short version of that is a big mobile bid adjustment upward means that your desktop bids are going to be lower and your ads simply won't make it to the first page. And you might want to, in some cases, you might have a production campaign where you have you want to run ads to mobile devices for a keyword that's working, but you haven't figured out how to get it to work on desktop, and so you would want that to be in your testing campaign until you can figure that out. Now, let's go into the settings. So the first thing you're going to find that's changed over the last few years is that there are a lot of different campaign types. Right now we're just talking about search campaigns. We've already talked about shopping campaigns a couple of weeks ago. And so for search campaigns, you're going to want to normally use search network only. Now there's other ways to do it, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But when you're starting out, when you don't know what else is going on and you want to test your way to profitability, start with search network only. Now, the standard campaign is well, it's what they give you with the AdWords Express thing, and what you want to do is go ahead, if it's not already, use the all features, and that means that you can actually control your stuff in the way that you want to. There are different types of ads that are available here through the search network. There are mobile app engagement ads, there are dynamic search ads, which Google says not recommended here, and as a starting point, I would agree with them, but there are times when those can actually be effective as a method of doing keyword discovery, for example. And then there are call-only ads, which is actually for certain types of businesses, local businesses that just want to, a plumber that just wants to get the phone to ring. A call-only campaign targeting mobile devices locally can be freaking fantastic because you probably wouldn't be surprised how often people are standing next to a busted toilet or a busted water heater or a busted air conditioning thing, and they're sitting there with their mobile phone and they whip that sucker out and do a search. And when that's the case, call-only campaigns can actually work really well, and you actually do get great data from Google's call extensions, and Google's call forwarding service actually is really fantastic. So there's a lot of cool stuff that's been added to AdWords. I don't want to just diss Google, but here is one where your defaults should be okay, but in some cases, depending on how the account was set up, you might find that it's not set up the right way. I've run into accounts where they were spending $15,000 or $20,000 a month, and their campaigns were set up under standard because some Google rep had called them on the phone and gotten them started on AdWords Express, and they just hadn't gone back and fixed their campaigns, which meant that they didn't have as much control as they should have to be able to do the job well. So some things to consider. Now, there is a Search Network Plus Display Select, which is available, and if search is working really, really well for you, it's worth, in my opinion, giving display select a little bit of a test. But that would be a separate campaign that you run with a small budget for testing purposes, because you're probably not going to want to bid as much on that one, so that your search ads that are already running will continue to show in your search campaign, and you can create one with display select and see if the display select actually pans out for you. There are also, of course, shopping, display, remarketing campaigns, all manner of other things that we're not talking about here. But the biggest thing here is when you're running a search campaign, Google's going to want to go ahead and stick you in that search partner network. And yes, as I've already said today, and I'll repeat again when I have an opportunity to do so in the future, the search partner network is not the toxic cesspool of waste that it once was, where you could expect your ROI to be about half of what it was on the Google search network itself. It's not that dangerous to turn on search partners, and so test using Google Search Network to start with, but if that's working out okay or close to okay, go ahead and get the search partners in there, because in some cases, on some keywords and for some terms, you might actually find that that your ads can even perform better on the search partner network, and that's because of the nature of the beast, that depending on the demographic, you might actually reach a lot of people who have ask.com or one of the others as their default search. And so you'd want to include search partners in that and test it out if you're doing well with just the Google Search Network. More often than not, when we enable search partners, we do that fairly quickly, and more often than not, it ends up being a positive contribution in terms of more traffic, more sales, more conversions, and more profit. So I don't want to give you the same caution I would have given you, 5 years ago about the search partner network, but still, get as much control as you can, and for testing purposes, get search partners in there if you need it to have enough traffic to test with, but start with the Google Search Network and try to get that working first. I would love to get to a day when we don't even need to make that distinction, but we are still there, because there are still significant differences in how the search network and the search partner network are going to perform. in different markets, and the way that we handle that is the same way that we would handle search network and display select. You'd have a if you're going to be really conservative about it, you can actually set up a different campaign that has Google Search Network and search partners in it, and one that's just Google Search Network. That's something that we basically always did a few years ago, and now we're doing less and less just because the performance of the networks. Once you see that the performance of the networks is about equal in your market, you can really kind of drop that and not have to manage the extra campaigns. So let's talk about device settings, because this is one of the big things that's changed over the last several years. One, from us having control of what devices and where our ads appeared at all, and for a while we had a ridiculously high level of control. That is to say, we could actually specify individual device types, like the Nokia XJ42000, which is probably not a real phone. But you could actually say, I want to bid on that one, but not on the XP42000. Now we don't have that much control, and now it's based on the same logic that that is used for day of week bid adjustments, and always has been used for day of week and time of day bid adjustments for ad schedules. That is, and that's been used for location bid adjustments. Now the mobile bid adjustments work the same way. Now this ranges from plus 400% to minus 100%, and it's it's a little bit screwy. So you don't get the kind of control that you'd want. Now a lot of people, when Google rolled out the change to this format, actually overreacted to it and said, well, gosh, since I have to specify a bid amount for mobile devices, Google is forcing me to bid on mobile devices. No, they're not. In fact, you can put a minus 100% on mobile devices. You know what you can't put a minus 100% on? Computers and tablets with full browsers. So really what they're doing is forcing you to bid on desktop and lumping desktop and large format tablets like the iPad together. That's not the greatest thing, but it is what it is. But we do have a great deal more control than we used to. And for most folks, if you haven't got a mobile specific purpose, from a starting point, you'd probably want to start out with either a minus 100% or a minus 80%, something like that, bid adjustment for mobile devices, so that if you do get traffic from mobile devices, it's going to tend to be cheap traffic. Now, I'm going to tell you, mobile devices do convert better than they used to, because, well, the screens are getting better and the browsers are getting faster and more people are getting used to doing transactions. But the thing that's going to make mobile devices, particularly for retailers, a super awesome way to go is when you get Apple Pay rolled out into your website mix and things like that. Right now, if you're doing a lot of retail traffic from mobile devices, PayPal is one that can help a lot, because a lot of people use PayPal, and it's simply an easier checkout. They don't have to try and thumb type in their credit card number. They can just enter their password and pay by PayPal. But the future, folks, is Apple Pay. Not necessarily Apple's Apple Pay. Google's got one that works on Android devices, but the fact is, I would say somewhere within the next 5 to 10 years, the vast majority of online transactions will be concluded not by somebody banging in a bunch of credit card information, but by somebody simply pressing their thumb onto their phone. And by the way, if they don't get them into the desktop computers where you can press your thumb, a lot of people will have their desktop and mobile devices linked, and so you will still complete the transaction by pushing your thumb on your phone, even if you're sitting there at a desktop computer. Now, some other things to consider with mobile before we move on, because this is an area that I know we're going to get a lot of questions about, and there are no right answer, but understand that some keywords might make more sense for mobile than desktop. That's why the ability to control mobile bids at the ad group level was so important, because otherwise we had to segregate the keywords that worked well for mobile and the keywords that didn't work well for us on mobile into different campaigns. Now we can control that at the ad group level. So why might a keyword be better on mobile or worse on mobile? Well, things like what's the purpose of the landing page? So if you've got an opt-in type page, mobile, if all you need to do is punch in an email address, it's pretty darn easy to do that. If you need somebody to actually complete a giant form or something like that, then you need to have if you've got 15 different form fields that you need to redesign your form experience probably into a multi-step form where you can capture information incrementally. Hint, start with the email address, so if they don't finish it, you can email them and ask them to finish it. But optimize mobile landing pages that have a specific purpose, where you're recognizing the fact that they're on a phone and not able to type as fast, not necessarily able to use the same kind of form filling plugins and things like that they might be able to use in the desktop environment. But look, mobile traffic can be very productive. If you build a good experience, it can be extremely productive. And in a lot of cases, in so many markets, mobile traffic is actually cheaper to buy than desktop traffic. And so, particularly if you're in a lead generation business, there are so many different ways to make mobile productive when you can get traffic for, in a lot of cases, a fifth of the cost. Because if you optimize for the experience so that you actually do well when people are coming through on mobile devices and you get cheaper traffic, well, that can be a significant win for you. And let's face it, your competitors could do this, but some of them might, but not all of them will. Everything I'm showing you here, some of your competitors are going to get this wrong, and every advantage it says right in the dictionary that every advantage is an advantage. I think that's a tautology. By definition, a tautology is a tautology, by the way. Look it up some other time. But every advantage that you can get improves your ROI. And so just fixing stuff in mobile, when we do AdWords audits and we guarantee that you're going to see a 20% ROI by implementing our recommendation in 30 days, well, one of the reasons why we feel confident about making that recommendation is that there's a very good chance that there's going to be a lot of ROI hiding in the way that you're bidding on mobile. So let's talk about locations, because that's the other big place where money gets wasted. And these days I've been calling it the Angola Okey-Doke, because we had a client that came in, and one of the first things that we found was that they were getting, well, 10% of their traffic in a particular campaign was coming from Angola. Now that's weird, because they were targeting the United States in their location settings. The United States was the only location that they were targeting. However, if you do not go into this advanced settings and change the horrible recommendation that Google sets up for you in your campaign settings to target people in my targeted location and exclude people in my excluded location, what you're going to find out is that you might get people who are in or searching for or who show interest in my targeted location. So if somebody in Angola typed United States, or they visited a website that's in the United States that was showing Google or double-click ads, like maybe they went to CNN.com, now they're showing an interest in the United States, and so your ads can be shown to them over in Angola. No, that's not what you want. You want to change this. I can picture cases where if you're in the travel business or something like that, you might want to play this game differently, but for almost everybody, target the location that you want to target, and then make sure that the location options are set to target people in your targeted location, and not people who just searched for the name of the location or visited a website that happens to be there. Okay, this is well, normally it's not 10% of your budget for a campaign being wasted, but I guarantee you that money is being wasted here if you do not have these settings correct. So free money for you right there. Let's move on to bid strategy. Now this is one that well, my recommendation in most cases is the same as it has been. As a starting point, don't let Google optimize your bids for you. Just say, I'll manually set my bids for clicks, and Google might not recommend that to you, but do it anyway. The second option there is awfully tempting. AdWords will set my bid to help maximize clicks within my target budget. But as we've discussed the last couple weeks, you are not interested in buying clicks. You're not interested in buying cheap clicks. You're interested in buying profit. And so the only way to get control of that is by testing, and the only way to test properly is to set your bids for clicks yourself. Now, enhanced CPC is something that you can turn on when you're actually doing well and profitable. So if you've got good ROI and it's at or better than what your target needs to be, go ahead and turn on enhanced CPC and see how that does, because in a lot of cases enhanced CPC will improve your results by increasing your bid when people are by Google's best guess, more likely to convert. Now, if you don't have a lot of conversions, there's no point in using enhanced CPC. But if you've reached the state where you can actually turn on Conversion Optimizer, and that's this little option down here to focus on conversions. And by the way, this is one that is absolutely worth testing but you do need to consider that you might want to let it run for a while, and then you might have to turn it off. And it's really more of an advanced topic, how we use the search terms report, how we analyze the performance of conversion optimizer campaigns and determine when it's time for us to take control again, run them manually for a while, get Google's conversion history corrected, essentially, and then you can turn Conversion Optimizer back on. Most of the time we have to turn it off and on to keep it performing well. But Conversion Optimizer is something that if you're in a highly competitive market where the cost for the clicks is really, really high, Conversion Optimizer is something where if you have conversion history and you use a max cost per action, that's the maximum CPA that you're willing to pay bidding, you can actually extract profits out of markets where you really wouldn't be able to get away with it otherwise. Flexible bid strategies I'm not even going to go into, but as a starting point, it's really not a good starting point. So, the ad delivery method. Now this is one that if you've heard me talk about it since the dawn of delivery method settings, my recommendation here is the same as it ever was. When you are in a testing mode, standard delivery is fine as long as you haven't set your budget so low that your ads never show up. Once you're in production mode, standard delivery, which is what Google recommends, will actually cost you impressions and it will cost you money. And so you're going to want to use accelerated delivery. And accelerated delivery just means as soon as my campaign day starts, so if your campaign is set up to start showing bids from 8 a.m. up until 10 p.m., at 8 a.m. Google is going to make sure that every time your ad has a chance to show, they're going to try and shove it in there. And that means that you might actually spend through your budget by 6 p.m. and your ads aren't going to show up in the evening. Well, there's pros and cons about that. But you can increase your budget and prevent that from happening. With standard delivery, Google doesn't know how fast people are going to click, and so in order to try and make sure that your ads are always showing throughout that whole day, they're not going to show your ads as much, and so you're going to lose impressions. And so standard is okay for testing, but as soon as you know that you're really profitable and ready to go into production, crank that up to accelerated, get the budget, and you will probably have to adjust your budget upward at least once to make that go if you were running close to the budget with your testing campaigns. Accelerated is the way that you want to go, and that assumes that you or somebody is actually going to be monitoring the performance so that if something goes way off the rails, somebody can jump in relatively quickly and do something about it. Ad rotation. Here's another one that we've talked about before, and they've given us more options now by making it harder for us to get the control that we want to. In fact, we almost lost. They initially announced that we were going to lose the ability to use the setting that I'm about to recommend that you use pretty much all the time. And the reason why we recommend that you use indefinite rotation is that you cannot do ad testing. So as we talked about, putting 2 or 4 ads into rotation for testing purposes last week, well, you can't do that if you do not set your ads to rotate. Now there are a couple of rotate options, and one is to show ads more evenly for at least 90 days and then optimize, and that's I don't really feel like running the ad test, but I'd rather Google started optimizing after they've accumulated more data, and that's a okay hands-off-ish kind of approach. That is to say, if you're going to set up ad tests, but you're not planning on actually monitoring them and keeping track of the results and making decisions, then go ahead and use rotate evenly for 90 days and then optimize, because 3 months from now, after you haven't done your job of managing your AdWords account, Google will essentially kill your losers and keep your winners. Now they'll be doing that under what might be very low statistical confidence or very high statistical confidence, because, well, they're going to treat it the same way as they do under the optimize for clicks or optimize for conversions. Now, if you're running CPA ads, you're going to at some point going to run into the fact that you're losing conversions if you're doing active ad testing. And so at some point, once you've got a controller that's doing well and you like it, you really want to just turn on optimize for conversions and let the sucker run. But you want to let your ads run, and you want that to be on your part a conscious decision that I'm going to give up some control to Google, not an acceptance of Google's recommendation that you let them control, because I can guarantee you if you let them control it from the start, they are not going to do a good job of it. And I have no idea why they don't do a good job of it, other than that it takes a long time to really reach conclusions on ad tests, and well, Google would probably like you to spend more money faster, and so as long as they can increase their odds of making more money a little bit by doing something, that's great for them, but you're trying to buy profits, not for Google, but for yourself. And so Google will warn you, your ads may not perform as well with this option. Optimized ad rotation is recommended for most advertisers by Google. They should say by Google because, anyway. So here's a little gotcha catch. So if you go into your campaign settings and you say, holy cow, I had this thing set up to optimize for clicks, or I had it set up to rotate evenly for 90 days, but all of these have now switched over to optimizing for clicks or optimizing for conversions, you can't just change the setting to rotate indefinitely and have those older ads actually get in equal rotation. It's weird, it's stupid, it doesn't work the way it should work, but changing this setting in order to actually have it take effect and change the rotation for you, you want to change this setting, and then you want to make a copy of the ads that you want to run, let those run for a few days, and then you can pause the old ones and leave the new ones running. So if you've got ad A, which is your control, and ad B, which is your test ad, and you've changed it to rotate indefinitely and still it's a 70-30 split between the two, make a copy of ad A, make a copy of ad B, let all 4 ads run, so you've got two copies of A and 2 copies of B, and then turn the old copies of A and B off after the new ones have had a chance to actually build up a little bit of history to where their performance is about equal. Now, sometimes that can take a few days, sometimes that can take a week, and then you can pause those other ones, and then you'll actually be on even rotation. So just a few notes about budgeting, and then we should have some time to answer questions if folks have them. A shared budget is another thing that's been a newer-ish, not years, but a newer-ish development compared to when some folks might have heard about this stuff. And a shared budget just allows you to create one budget that applies to multiple campaigns. So if you have to have several production campaigns, for example, you can have a shared budget for all of them. But just be aware that when you've got a shared budget, it's just like one ad group in your campaign can chew through the whole budget for the campaign, and none of the other ad groups get any impressions or clicks. One campaign, if you have 5 of them sharing the same budget, can eat the whole shared budget. Michelle, that's happened to us more than once, and happened to a lot of other folks out there where a campaign starts to take off, maybe a new ad starts to get a lot better click-through rate or something like that, and it runs up and it uses up the whole budget. And so other stuff doesn't. Now you'll get a warning if your shared budget hits a limit, is being limited, just like you would with a single campaign budget. But it's a little bit more work to actually go in and figure out which campaign is eating your budget and might not be allowed to participate in a shared budget anymore. But the same thing can happen with the ad group. We had a client who brought somebody in to look at the campaign. Somebody from I don't want to mention the name of the company, but it rhymes with Rugal. And they took a huge list of keyword suggestions from this company that rhymes with Rugal, stuck it in an ad group in our most productive campaign of our production campaigns, and that ad group chewed up the entire budget for that campaign in a matter of hours, which means that we lost hundreds of conversions before we caught that, thanks to running scripts that alert us when things go wrong, and fixed it. You can, again, within a campaign, you can have one ad group run wild and use up the whole budget. But shared budgets are something you just have to be aware of if you're going to use shared budget, particularly if you're doing the multi-campaign strategy that we talked about for shopping campaigns to get keyword control. A shared budget can be a risky thing because you can have your low-value campaign get a bunch of extra keyword traffic that can chew up your budget that steals from your high-value campaign. So shared budgets can be useful in terms of keeping overall budget control, but just be aware that you're getting a little bit of security at potentially at the cost of profits, and so it does require monitoring, at least on a daily basis, to make sure that you don't run off the rails with it. For your testing campaigns, again, you're going to want to have a smaller budget. For your production campaigns, you're going to want to be running accelerated delivery, and you want to just monitor the budget and make sure that it's enough that you're not hitting that budget cap. And most of the time when we set an ad schedule, if we do need to set an ad schedule where the ads stop at a particular time of day, we're going to pad that. The first hour is going to be not necessarily the most productive, and the last hour is going to be not necessarily the most productive. But that tends to shield us a little bit from losing value when we use accelerated delivery. But still, you need to monitor and manage those budgets on a regular basis. And of course, if you're dealing with a lot of testing, and maybe you're testing different offers or different products in different markets and stuff like that, you can use multiple testing campaigns, just like you can use multiple production campaigns. In the case of what we do for shopping, there might be 2 or 3 campaigns that are production campaigns for shopping that are running all at once. So when I said, run the smallest number of campaigns you can, don't be afraid to start up a new campaign. They don't charge you extra to have an extra campaign. It's just one more thing to manage, and you'd like to, be managing as few things as possible, and you'd like to be moving stuff around as little as necessary. So that's all I've got in terms of my formal presentation for today. I know we're going to have some questions for folks, because I know we've got a lot of advertisers on the Hangout with us here today. So before we do that, just want to answer the question that someone out there undoubtedly has, is can someone just do that for me? And if the Marketer's Brain Trust does that for me, what do you charge? Well, we can do just set up and then hand it over to you. That starts at $1,500, and that's a custom quote. Sometimes it'll be a little bit more depending on how much you've got, and we've had campaigns that we've set up where it's literally separate campaigns for every state, and then individual geographic, demographic market area campaigns within those, and a whole bunch of weird layering and structure, and setting all that stuff up with ad testing going on in all those different containers, and that costs a little bit more than $1,500 to set up. For us to set it up and run it, that starts at $997 a month for search remarketing. That is dynamic remarketing. We're not actually doing image ads for you, unless, but you can do them if you want to yourself. You just have to provide the ads to us. So that's search shopping and remarketing display campaigns. That starts at $997 a month. That's based on 10% of your ad spend, but the $997 is a minimum monthly fee. We do ask you that you give us a minimum of 3 months to actually give us time to do our job and let what we're doing work. But after that, it's just 30 days notice. So if you wanted to give us notice at the end of the second month, you'd really only have to have us in there running it for 3 months, and then we'd be done. And of course, we often make this offer, so you may hear us make the same offer again in a month or so. But if you sign up in the next 7 days, you can do that without any setup costs. Just with the management fee involved. You can go to, actually that link is for our shopping campaigns, which is $497 a month minimum at PPC1. But if you're not looking for just shopping campaigns, just drop me an email, dan+ppc@marketersbraintrust.com. That plus PPC on my email address lets me know that it's about AdWords, and so I can pull it up when I'm dealing with AdWords, because I do that at certain specific times of day and not all day long, because well, I would go mad if I sat there reading emails all day long, and it would be madness to do so. So, Michelle, I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen sharing.
Okie dokie.
And maybe if Leslie's still around, he'll make me stop being the presenter person. Stop screen sharing, and I'll try to stop presenting on my end. No, I don't think that I can actually control that. I think Leslie has control of that, and he's probably off having a beer by now.
Yep. Or he can't hear us. He can't hear us because his mic's muted, but I'm bumped. So you did have one question over there, Dan.
So what is a search partner? It says. That's a good question.
That is a good question. I'd like to know the answer to that question as well.
So the search partners are companies that provide search results outside of Google. So the Google search network is all of the Google search sites. So google.com.au, google.com, google.br, google.ru, google.whatever country, right? That's one source of inventory for search ads, but also there are search engines out there that, in some cases you might be surprised that they still exist. I didn't really think much about Lycos, but I think they're still running a sort of a search engine, and I didn't really think much about AOL after they bought Time Warner during the bubble, and then nobody uses dial-up anymore, so where did they go? But there's still, there's still AOL search. There's ask.com, which used to be Ask Jeeves, which used to actually run its own search engine for a very brief time, and now basically just serves up paid ads, as far as I can tell. And so through those search partners, you get ads that show up. And one of the issues with the search partner network was one that, well, it's still the same issue, is that you check that box and you get all of them. You don't have any granular control and say, well, you can't see, are the referrals from AOL good and the ones from Ask bad. You can't tell the difference between them. And so some search partners were, well, I don't want to say that they were engaged in fraud, because, well, that's a serious accusation and I can't prove it, but other people have certainly made efforts, like Ben Edelman has made serious efforts to prove it, and some of the stuff he's published is why we see the behavior of the search partner network cleaned up a little bit. But also, back in the day, you could put an exact match into Google, but when it got to the search partner network, it turned into a broad match. So, my exact match for dog bed wouldn't turn into an exact match for pet furniture, or turn into a broad match on pet furniture on Google.com, but it would turn into that on the search partner network. And that's something where the performance of that stuff is significantly better than it used to be. And that's why the traffic quality from the search partners is a lot better now. It's most of the time in most markets, it's really just sort of an extension. It's just gives you more search without any significant difference in the quality of the traffic. So, for example, for Bing, Yahoo is their big search partner, right? So if you go search on Yahoo, you're getting search results and ads from Bing, but that's part of that search partnership agreement that Yahoo and Bing have. And oh, by the way, that's not when you get to opt out of. When you use Binghu, you're using Binghu, and you really don't need to opt out of it because it's just Bing and Yahoo. So there's what's a request? That's weird. No, Michael, we can't invite you as a speaker, but if you put a question in the chat, we can answer your question. Do we have any more questions? I don't see any more questions. There we go, George. So, could you comment on seeking a greater volume of longer tail keywords for lower cost ads? And so here's the problem with that. That used to be a fantastic way to go back in the day, when we could put an exact match for anything, and we used to use tools that would generate bazillions of permutations of every possible way somebody could type something. But many years ago, Google switched to something called live quality scoring, which means that when there's a query, they actually try to live there really fast, figure out which ads are actually the best match, but also which landing pages are a good match for the query. And when they started doing that, you got to where now you see low search volume, where you can't actually bid and you can't actually run your ads against super long tail stuff. And so it's really not as much of a strategy as it was. If it's biddable, I wouldn't call it long tail. That is to say, if Google will let you run ads on it, great. But you can't do that kind of stuff that we used to be able to do back in the good old days. So let's see, Michael, thank you for bringing over the chat. So it seems like mobile ads should be optimized for mobile devices specifically and should be in their own campaign or ad group. No, because you can actually have a different mobile ad in your ad group that runs to a mobile landing page, so you don't really need to do that kind of stuff with mobile on AdWords anymore. And on mobile, your phone number can appear as a title. Yes, yes, it can, and you can still run the phone extension, and you can run call-only ads. But anyway, that's something we could talk about, all the different permutations and ways to play with. There's actually more ways to play with that on Bing right now than there are on AdWords. But call-only campaigns are something that you can run in addition to search campaigns, and you might find that the call campaigns for, like I said, for the local businesses can be a lot better way to go. Dawn, would you consider an online workshop where a bunch of us pay a small amount to get guided through an AdWords campaign? Actually, Dawn, we're working on doing something similar to that, which you won't have to pay for, and that is we're working on actually packaging as a product the campaign audits that we do, so that people can just pay to have us give them a specific set of recommendations that they could either implement for themselves, or that they could that they could hire us to do or hire somebody else to do to implement those recommendations. But what we're going to be doing before that rolls out as a formal product offering, because I'm going to have to get a bunch of people to accept one for free and then give me feedback on how it works. And by the way, I mean, we really need you to be spending about $5,000 a month or more to be able to make that an effective process for you. But if you're interested in getting one of the free ones, you can just email me, Dan plus PPC at marketersbraintrust.com. But what we're going to be doing, Dawn, is I'm getting ready to set up a series of webinars, and I don't know how often we'll do it. It'll kind of depend on how much demand there is. But we'll actually what we'll do is we'll actually do live campaign audits, and so people will be able to raise their hand, sign up. They'll be exposed to the people that are on the show, but we won't be releasing recordings or anything like that of these events. But you'll be able to go in. We'll walk through somebody's campaign. And that'll give us a chance to walk through kind of every aspect of it. So walk through campaign setup, walk through ad group setup, all that kind of stuff. The decisions that you make vary so much depending on what market you're in, what your goals are and stuff like that, that it's really hard to do kind of a one-size-fits-all AdWords training that isn't ridiculously long to cover every contingency. And more we're starting to lean towards just either helping people one-on-one live, or doing a group setting where we're helping 4 or 5 people do stuff live, and there are other people there in the audience that are learning from what we're doing. So I hope that kind of becomes a solution for you. We're hoping that the first event will actually be next Monday afternoon. So if you want to pencil that into your calendar for 3 p.m. Eastern next Monday, if we're going to go, we'll know in a couple of days, and so there will be mail out like Thursday, and maybe another email out on Friday, depending on what kind of response we get. But that'll be the way that we're going to try and handle that. Is do the walkthrough with people so people can see these in concrete examples. But the thing is, I can't use any of my clients' accounts for this. I mean, I can't do a walkthrough with any client that I have, and so it's got to be somebody where the fact that a few people might see what they're doing is as big of a deal compared to getting the help that they're going to get for free to actually get a profitable campaign set up. And by the way, anybody that thinks they're going to sit in on one of these and learn some grave trade secret about a competitor, you're smoking stuff, because you can learn a lot more just by doing search queries and looking at the ads that are there and looking at the landing pages that are there. If you want to do competitive intelligence, all we're going to be doing on these things is helping people get themselves set up, and you're not going to learn anything by watching somebody else do it that you wouldn't learn by raising your own hand. So I hope we'll be able to get people to raise their hands, but who knows, there's always a healthy amount of paranoia out there. So if you've discovered some niche market that nobody's in, where there's some amazing product that nobody else can find or sell and nobody knows about, don't raise your hand for that. You might be one of the people that just wants to just pay us to set it up for you. But I think for most of the folks that we deal with that are either in trying to get something set up, that'll be a good way for you to get some help. And also for people that you've got an agency and you're not sure if they're doing a decent job, you can have us look at it and at least give you some feedback on what they're doing well and where they might be able to improve, and then you can take that back to your agency and say, here's what they said, and they can either convince you that we're full of it, or they can say, oh wow, that's a good idea, we'll do that, and then they're a better agency and your life is better without having to switch agencies, or they lie to you and you can fire them and hire us. Not that agencies would ever lie to you, but
right.
Some of them do.
Well, what I discovered recently, Dan, with a client that I've been working with, is they hired a company. They didn't really hire an agency to set up their website and set up their campaigns.
They hired a telemarketing operation.
They actually hired a real web company.
Okay.
And the company did exactly and only what they committed to. They set up their campaigns. They turned them on, they set a budget, and they walked away. And for 3 years, they have run with no one ever looking at them.
If they set up ad tests at the start of that, I could turn that 3 years worth of day-of-week data on the ad variations into gold.
No ad tests.
Yeah, usually they just set
one
up
ad,
and
one brand name ad, and 200-300 keywords or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I know why people sell that kind of crap, because I guess they just don't have a conscience, but I don't. know why people buy that kind of crap.
Yeah, well, it's because people don't know. And even folks who come on our call and come and listen, they just, you hire somebody to do your website and they may trust them that they can just set this up. Well, let me just set that up for you. But just setting it up when we're doing it and the paces that we go through to set it up, but just setting up is not running and managing a campaign and optimizing it to make more money fall out of it. That's just setting it up.
You can't just set it and forget it. I mean, I
not a
mentioned day of week.
oven.
And we were trying to debate, should we do a 4th week of Adwords Triangulation Method about dimensional analysis? And it's like, well, no. I mean, that's the really complicated stuff that comes after you've got stuff set up into a good structure like this that you can later on you can add that kind of stuff in. But as an example of the kind of stuff that we do with dimensional analysis, we had a client that came in end of November last year, and tripled the number of leads that we got him over, I think, 3.5 months, something like that. It was like just under 3 months to double it. And they were like, I loved the way it was set up. It was exactly how I would have set it up. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say they did a bad job. They did a fantastic job. But what they didn't do was, after they had that set up and running and they were managing the bids and, running ad tests and stuff like that, they didn't take advantage of the fact that they had several months worth of history. And at that point, hundreds of conversion actions. We now get, more than 100 a week. But they had all of this data, and we went back through and did the first wave of dimensional analysis is usually based on day of the week, and you have these ad tests where it's kind of neck and neck, and we don't know if the A ad or the B ad is going to be the winner, or they might have already called a winner, like, well, the A ad is getting more, giving us more conversions than the B ad is, so the B ad's been turned off. When we go back and actually look at history, well, it's the B ad was actually doing better on Sundays and Mondays, and Tuesdays and Wednesdays they had another ad that was doing better on those days that had been turned off, and they'd say Tuesdays and Wednesdays are our worst days. Well, once we actually found out there was one ad that worked really well on those days, it just didn't work well on the other 5 days of the week, then we were able to turn that on, and Tuesdays and Wednesdays became their best days. And so there's a lot of stuff in there. If you've got stuff set up and structured when you've been running ad tests, there's a lot more that your data has to tell you. It's just at a certain point, it's I can't really figure out how to teach that as a do-it-yourself. Just hire an expert if you can get us in there, and it doesn't cost much, if anything, to get us to go in there and let you know what the size of that opportunity is, and then if there's an opportunity there, you can make a decision on whether you want to figure out how to do all that statistical math and stuff like that, and set up scripts to rotate the ads and turn them on and off on the right days of the week and all that stuff, or you want to hire us to do it. Paying 10% of spend to get a 20% increase in ROI seems like an increase in profit to me, but
we could be biased.
I did have to take statistics twice before I passed it, just so for full disclosure. The first time was 5th grade, so I think I was not ready for it. I was just being stupid to take it that young.
It was probably just a little early, since you probably couldn't say it.
No, I mean, I took it at the same time as I took the other math that goes with it. It's just that, taking the core math and then taking the applied math at the same time was really, really stupid. So if anybody wonders where my list of stupid things starts, it starts earlier than that, but that'd probably be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Well, you're now allowed to forgive your 10-year-old self. So.
No.
It is so.
No.
No. Okay.
Egotistical little bastard thought he was smarter than everybody.
Okay.
I want to go smack him right now. And then buy him some ice cream and tell him it's going to be okay, and then smack him again.
All right, there you go. There you go.
I have a very abusive relationship with my 10-year-old self.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope it gets better.
Yeah, we don't have any questions, so this might be time to wrap the show.
Excellent.
So for everybody that's still on, I don't recall. Michelle. So for next week, did we get an okay to talk about that Facebook Shopify shopping ad thing?
I don't have a confirmation yet. I hope to have a confirmation a little later today. But if so, then that's going to be a lot of fun next week.
So next week we might be showing you something really freaking cool, like how to sell products on Facebook by running ads that have a freaking buy button on them that in some cases is a one-click buy button. So show them the thing on Facebook and they push a button and they can, well, it's not actually one click. They'll have to say that they actually want to pay for it. But The future is coming, and it's coming fast. It's a great time to be a retailer if you're in a position to be really super nimble. If you're on one of these ancient, creaky platforms like Volusion that charges you, bazillions of dollars to do anything, and bazillions is a number I made up because I don't think they can sue me for saying bazillions, because bazillions could be 7 for all they know, because it's not a word. But if you're on one of these creaky old platforms where it takes months or years to get access to the abilities that people on a platform like Shopify have, you might want to start thinking about how you're going to transition to a modern platform now, because Shopify, and there are several others, but Shopify is one that is rapidly coming to the forefront of being a great place to sell through. And so Shopify's got these, it's a limited number of Shopify stores right now, but it'll roll out to more that can actually run these shopping ads on Facebook, and they are frickin' fantastic. And frickin' is also not a word, but means very much goodly good. So hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that, because that's going to be really awesome. So Bobby would like me to repeat the fees that we charge for AdWords. So, well, gosh, since that's self-serving, I'll go ahead and do that. If it's just shopping campaigns, if we're doing shopping campaigns only, we start that at $4.97 a month minimum, and 10% of spend if you go over $5,000 in spend in the month, which with shopping campaigns, in some cases, it can be hard to do, depending on the size of your catalog. There just isn't that much inventory out there if you've got 100 products. For search ads, and that means at that point we'll take over search ads, shopping ads, remarketing, and we'll even run dynamic ads if you want to. That is also based on 10% of ad spend, but it's a minimum of $997 a month. And on all those, it's a minimum of 3 months commitment. So if you sign up, it's going to be 3 months that you're on the hook for, and we're going to be on the hook for 3 months too to work on. Now, if we get together for our first meeting and determine that we can't help you, we're going to refund that first month's charge, and then everybody's out, because if we can't help you, we don't want to be in it. But it's basically think of it as a 3-month commitment, and so then it's 30 days to cancel, and that just gives us a little bit of stability in terms of our staffing, that we have a client that we've got somebody who's working on and being trained to monitor ads and things like that, and understanding your market better and better, that you can't cancel today and then tomorrow they're laid off. So we can actually have time to retrain them to some other purpose. And so that's the fees on that. And just if you're interested, we want to talk about it before you sign up, because we want to make sure we can actually help you. We want to get access to the account, look through it with you, understand what your goals are. What does your ROI need to be? How do we measure that? Can we measure it? Do we need to get measurement in place before we start? That kind of stuff. So just email me, dan+ppc@marketersbraintrust.com, and we'll get the conversation going. There, that was more than repeating the fees, Bobby, sorry, but I think all that other stuff is important too, to having a good relationship. So that's all we got. So we'll be back next week, and maybe Leslie will even be able to use his microphone to speak to you next week. Who knows? Anything can happen. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. And